Emotions feel automatic, as if anger, fear, or sadness simply erupt from deep biological circuits. But what if those emotions are not reactions, but constructions? Welcome to Crisis in Perception, where we examine the systems shaping our world.
Right.
In this deep dive, we explore how emotions are made by Lisa Feldman Barrett and the theory of constructed emotion.
Mm-hmm.
The system examined here is the predictive brain, a biological and cultural system that interprets bodily sensations and past experience to construct emotional meaning.
Yeah, and for centuries, the classical theory of emotion basically assumed that feelings were universal reflexes. Anger, sadness, fear, joy, they were all thought to have specific biological fingerprints.
Right, like distinct neural circuits or facial expressions.
Exactly. Physiological responses that appear the same across all humans.
Yeah.
But decades of neuroscience research have completely failed to find these consistent signatures.
Which is wild.
It is. Barrett argues that the problem is not faulty measurement, but faulty assumptions about how the brain works. Instead of reacting to the world, the brain operates as a prediction engine.
A prediction engine.
Right. Its primary job is managing the body's resources, a process called allostasis, or body budgeting.
Okay.
To do this efficiently, the brain constantly predicts what the body will need next. It uses past experience, cultural knowledge, and consensual categories to interpret incoming sensory signals. Emotion emerges from this predictive process.
So when the brain encounters ambiguous bodily sensations like a racing heart or tense muscles, increased breathing, it does not simply detect a pre-existing emotion.
No, it doesn't. Instead, it uses learned concepts and past experiences to construct meaning in the moment. A racing heart in a dark alley might be constructed as fear.
But the same sensation on a roller coaster might be constructed as excitement.
Exactly. The physical signals are similar. The interpretation differs. This means emotions are not fixed biological programs, but flexible mental constructions shaped by learning, language, and culture.
The incentive structure of the system is efficiency, right? Prediction is metabolically cheaper than constant analysis.
That's the key. By using past experience to categorize new sensations, the brain conserves energy and maintains stability. But this efficiency produces predictable outcomes. Different individuals develop different emotional concepts depending on culture, upbringing, and experience.
So one person may distinguish between frustration, irritation, and resentment, while another simply experiences anger.
Yes, and this variation is called emotional granularity, the ability to construct precise emotional categories. Higher granularity allows more flexible responses to complex situations. Lower granularity compresses many experiences into fewer emotional labels.
And over time, these constructions become self-reinforcing. Language, cultural norms, and social expectations teach people which emotions exist and when they should appear. Entire emotional landscapes are therefore shaped collectively.
Precisely. Why does this system persist? Because it is built into the architecture of prediction itself. The brain must interpret incomplete information constantly, and prediction guided by past experience is the only scalable solution.
But this also means perception of emotion is not purely objective. It is a negotiated interpretation between biology, memory, and culture.
And that brings us to the core issue. What is the crisis in perception here?
The common belief is that emotions are universal biological reflexes that simply happen to us.
But the structural reality is that emotions are constructed experiences shaped by prediction, learning, and culture. When this construction process remains invisible, emotional reactions appear inevitable and uncontrollable.
But when the predictive system becomes visible, emotions are no longer mysterious eruptions of instinct. They are interpretations assembled by the brain to make sense of the body and the world.
And that shift changes how we understand human behavior, conflict, and responsibility.
Okay, let's unpack this cause to truly understand just how radical this new science is. We got to start by looking at the story we've been telling ourselves for, well, over 2,000 years.
The classical view of emotion.
Right. The classical view. And we mean way back. We're talking Plato.
Big.
Yeah, Descartes, even Charles Darwin in his book, The Expression of the Emotions in Man and Animals, they all argued that humans possess these hardwired emotion circuits.
It's the triune brain concept.
Exactly. This idea that we have this ancient, unruly animal brain wrapped in a logical, uniquely human cortex.
The epic battle between logic and emotion.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the foundation of this classical view relies on this philosophical concept called essentialism.
Right. Essentialism. The belief that a category like sadness has a true underlying essence.
A fingerprint.
Exactly, a biological fingerprint. The classical view insists that if you feel angry, there's a specific, measurable fingerprint on your biology, a specific face,
Of specific heart rate.
dedicated neural circuits. And crucially, that fingerprint is exactly the same across all humans, everywhere.
And honestly, it's just so incredibly intuitive. As a human, that's exactly how it feels. It feels like a reflex.
It does.
Like Barrett shares this incredibly moving anecdote in the book about watching Connecticut Governor Daniel Malloy.
Oh, right, after the Sandy Hook massacre.
Yeah. Weeks after Sandy Hook, he's giving a speech, and he gets to the part about the teachers sacrificing their lives. And his voice, it just does this tiny fractional waver. And Barrett describes how it just devastated her instantly. Her stomach knotted into a ball, her eyes flooded with tears. The camera panned, and the crowd was sobbing too. It felt entirely automatic.
Which makes perfect sense under the classical view.
Right.
The classical theory says that the waver in his voice was a trigger. It launched a chain reaction, activating a sadness circuit buried deep in her brain.
It's just bypassing logic completely.
Completely, sending unilateral commands to her face, her body, tears well up, shoulders stoop. It's interpreted as a brute biological reflex.
We're taught this from day one. You walk into any preschool, and what's on the wall?
The laminated emotion posters?
Yes, the cartoon faces. Smile means happy, frown means sad. We teach kids this universal language of the face.
But it doesn't stop at preschool. It is baked into the highest stakes of our society.
Oh, totally.
Think about the legal system.
Crimes of passion.
Exactly. The defense rests on the idea that a defendant was driven by animalistic urges, that their rational brain was literally hijacked by an emotion circuit.
Or look at the tech industry. Billions of dollars poured into emotion-reading AI.
Assuming a camera can read your internal state just by measuring a furrowed brow.
Right. So I want to play devil's advocate for a second. If someone jumps out from behind a dumpster and screams in my face, my heart races, my eyes go wide, I jump back, everyone would say that person is experiencing fear.
It seems undeniable.
So what happens when you actually put these supposed fingerprints under a microscope?
Well, the entire 2,000-year-old foundation just crumbles.
Just falls apart.
Completely. Decades of intensive research, thousands of subjects, they have completely failed to find consistent biological signatures for emotions.
Not even one.
Not a single consistent physical fingerprint for any emotion category. Not fear, not anger.
And Barrett ran into this wall herself in grad school, right?
She did. She was running an experiment on the roots of low self-esteem, how it leads to anxiety or depression. It was supposed to be a standard replication.
But it failed.
It failed. She tweaked it, ran it again.
And it failed again.
8 times in a row.
8 times. I would have quit.
Most would.
Yeah.
But when she looked at the raw data, she realized the test subjects weren't distinguishing between anxiety and depression.
They weren't showing distinct boundaries.
No. They were basically just reporting that they felt, well, crappy.
Just generally bad.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating here is that this lack of a distinct fingerprint extends way beyond just self-reporting.
Right, because people might just be bad at describing feelings.
Sure, but the classical view breaks down at the objective biological level too. Let's look at the face.
Okay.
For decades, the evidence relied on the basic emotion method. Paul Ekman in the 60s.
The posed photographs.
Right. Exaggerated photos of actors pretending to be angry or sad. He'd show them to people and ask them to match the face to a list of words.
But that's a multiple choice test.
It is. It's highly constrained. The answer is heavily implied.
So what happened when they used better tech?
They used facial electromyography, EMG.
Sensors on the face.
Yes. Precise electral sensors detecting micromovements. They induced emotions in the lab and measured which muscles actually fired.
God.
The results were completely contrary to the classical view. EMG proved people move entirely different sets of muscles when experiencing the exact same emotion.
Variation is the norm.
Exactly.
I mean, think about it. You can be furious and scowl, or you can be furious and smile politely at your coworker while plotting revenge.
Or just sit there completely deadpan.
Or cry. There is no single anger face.
Right. But then you have the body. What about physiological changes?
Yeah, the famous 1983 science study. Ekman again.
Hooking people up to machines, measuring heart rate, skin conductance, sweating.
They asked subjects to pose their faces and supposedly found universal bodily changes.
It was treated as the gold standard for a long time.
But there's a massive flaw.
A huge alternative explanation. The Western subjects were given highly specific instructions on how to pose. Furrow your brow, press your lips.
That conceptual understanding, the acting, actually produced the the physical changes.
Yes. And we know this because of the replication failure.
Walk us through that, the trip to West Sumatra.
Anthropologists took the exact same setup to the Minangkabau tribe, a vastly different cultural understanding of emotion.
And when they made the faces?
The physical bodily changes, the heart rate spikes did not replicate. The universal fingerprint vanished.
Meaning it was cultural all along.
Based on Western concepts, not universal biology.
Mind-blowing.
And it gets wilder with the brain itself. We've all heard the myth that the amygdala is the fear center.
A vast oversimplification.
You can feel intense fear without amygdala activity. There are documented cases of people with totally calcified amygdalae who still feel fear. How?
Degeneracy.
Degeneracy.
This many-to-one mapping system in the brain. Entirely different sets of neurons can create the exact same mental state. There is no single fear circuit. It's like transportation. To get to work, you can drive, take a bus, walk, or bike. Different physical processes, same functional outcome.
Perfect analogy.
Right.
And there's also a one-to-many principle. The exact same neurons can contribute to vastly different mental states depending on context.
So the brain is just incredibly efficient and flexible.
Not a collection of rigid circuits.
Okay, so if our faces aren't broadcasting hardwired signals, our bodies aren't producing universal reactions, and our brains don't have dedicated circuits, what is happening?
You need a totally new paradigm. The theory of constructed emotion.
Right, because when I feel angry, I genuinely feel something. It's real.
It's real, but it's dynamically made from basic biological parts in the moment. It's not triggered by the outside world. It's created by your brain.
The cookie analogy, I love this.
It's brilliant.
Think about a cookie. You walk into a bakery. You have crisp ones, chewy ones, chocolate chips, savory rosemary, French macarons.
No single unifying ingredient.
No single recipe. If you tried to find the biological fingerprint of a cookie, you'd fail.
But they are all undeniably cookies.
Because we agree on their purpose. They're a snack.
The physical makeup varies, but the concept unifies them. Emotions work the exact same way. Anger is a massive population of diverse instances.
Population thinking.
Rooted in Charles Darwin. He realized a species is just a conceptual category applied to highly variable individuals. The variation is the reality.
So an emotion is not a thing. It's not an entity waiting to be unleashed. It's a category.
Exactly.
Today, you might be angry and your heart races and you yell. Tomorrow, you're angry, your heart rate drops, and you get eerily quiet. Contradictory physical data.
But your brain categorizes them together under the label of anger based on context.
Which is so liberating for the listener. You are not at the mercy of a lizard brain. You're an active constructor of your emotional reality.
It's profoundly empowering. But how does the brain actually pull this off? It starts with the fundamental architecture of prediction.
The dark box.
Right. Think about your brain, entombed in this dark, silent, thick box, your skull.
No eyes, no ears.
Isolated. It only receives ambiguous signals, flashes of light, air pressure changes, dull aches.
And it has to figure out what those mean instantaneously to keep you alive.
By constantly using past experiences to guess. It's a predictive brain, predicting the world before it happens to efficiently manage the body's resources.
Allostasis. Body budgeting.
Yes.
Every movement, every breath spends resources. Glucose, oxygen, cortisol. Your brain tracks deposits and anticipates withdrawals.
It issues predictions to ensure you have energy before you need it. Waiting to react is too slow.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The loud, mostly deaf scientist metaphor.
Oh, I love this one.
Imagine the scientist in a control room in your head, barking orders through a megaphone. Release cortisol. Dilate blood vessels.
Issuing commands before you consciously move. And he's mostly deaf. He doesn't wait for sensory corrections from the outside world.
Because processing takes precious milliseconds.
Right.
So imagine you're at your desk, motionless. You see your boss walking toward you.
You haven't moved.
But your brain instantly recognizes the context. The loud scientist predicts you need a surge of energy for this social interaction.
So it makes a massive withdrawal. Cortisol floods your bloodstream, glucose is released, heart rate speeds up.
All while you're just sitting there.
And that internal commotion creates sensory data sent back to the brain. Now, the brain has to interpret its own physical changes.
Which is what scientists call affect.
Affect, yes.
It's not an emotion, it's that basic background feeling. Pleasant or unpleasant, high arousal or low arousal.
Your body budget status report.
If you haven't slept, you're overdrawn, you feel crappy. But affect alone doesn't tell you what it means.
Right. A sudden ache in your stomach, unpleasant affect. But is it hunger? Nausea from a flu? Or intense anxiety before giving a speech?
The raw sensation is identical.
To make sense of it, your brain has to apply concepts.
The concept cascade. Let's do the blobby bee thought experiment.
Perfect.
Imagine looking at a black and white picture of random chaotic blobs.
Experiential blindness.
You see visual noise, but then someone tells you it's a bee, or shows you a photo of a bee. Suddenly, your brain pulls the concept of a bee and actively applies it to the blobs.
Simulating lines that aren't there.
You literally see the bee, and you can never unsee it.
The brain does the exact same thing with internal sensations.
Okay, so racing heart, tense muscles, heavy breathing, raw data, high arousal.
If you're in a dark alley at midnight, your predictive brain applies the concept of fear. It prepares you to run.
But what if you have those exact sensations strapped into a roller coaster clicking up to the first drop?
Different context. Your brain applies the concept of excitement. You don't run, you throw your hands up and scream.
The biological signals are identical. The interpretation, the concept, creates the emotion.
Emotion emerges from this conceptual process.
And it happens so fast it creates the illusion of free will. We think we're reacting, but we're constructing.
There's that great story about Barrett's family at the dinner table.
The earthquake.
Yes, they're eating dinner, and suddenly everyone feels this weird, wavy physical sensation.
Split-second experiential blindness.
Their brains generated hypotheses. Was it a heavy truck? Did we lose our balance?
They settled on an earthquake, even though none of them had ever been in one.
And hours later, they found out a rare 4.5 magnitude earthquake had hit a few states over.
Their brains took ambiguous novel data, matched it against stored knowledge, and constructed reality in real time.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it implies something profound. If emotions require concepts, then the more concepts you possess, the richer your emotional life becomes.
Emotional granularity.
Exactly.
It's like being a master sommelier of emotion versus having a basic toolbox with just a hammer.
Low granularity, you just feel awesome or crappy. You lump anxiety, sadness, and fatigue into one bucket of bad.
Which means you don't have the tools to fix it. If you're just exhausted but you think you're angry, you might start a fight instead of taking a nap.
But high granularity, you distinguish between aggravation, irritation, frustration, and hostility.
And this is where language is so powerful. Using a new word wires the brain to construct new emotional realities.
Absolutely.
Like the German concept of Schadenfreude, pleasure at someone else's misfortune. Or the Greek stenochoria, a dark feeling of doom and suffocation.
Or the Korean jong, deep agonizing attachment to a friend.
If you don't have the concept, your brain struggles to construct that specific experience.
Barrett even invented one in the book, chiplessness.
I know this one too well. You reach into a bag of chips expecting a crunch, but hit the greasy bottom.
Disappointment, relief, and guilt all at once.
By naming it, she created a shared social reality.
Emotions are social reality, like money or laws.
A $100 bill is just paper. It has value because we agree it does.
We sync our emotional concepts through language to communicate and regulate each other's body budgets.
And high granularity is a biological advantage. The arachnophobia study.
Right. They had subjects approach a spider. Distraction didn't work well. Reappraisal didn't work well.
But the high granularity group did.
They categorized their feelings precisely. Disgusting, nerve-wracking, but intriguing.
By breaking the feeling down, they weren't overwhelmed by generic terror. They actually approached the spider.
Words literally change our biology.
So what does this all mean? Because failing to understand this has life or death consequences across society.
We've built massive institutions on the flawed foundation of essentialism.
Look at national security. The TSA spent $900 million on the SAPEOT program.
Trying to read universal facial expressions to catch terrorists.
Looking for a twitch of the cheek, it was a categorical failure.
Because the universal fingerprints don't exist. An innocent person running late exhibits the same twitches as a smuggler.
Or the Gulf War. Saddam Hussein's half-brother misread American negotiators because they didn't show the intense emotional tells his culture predicted for war.
That misprediction contributed to a massive conflict.
And medicine. Women in the ER with chest pressure are disproportionately diagnosed with anxiety instead of a heart attack.
Because doctors use their predictive brains. They see a woman in distress, pull up cultural stereotypes of anxious women, and predict a psychological cause.
As a direct result, women over 65 die more frequently from heart attacks.
It's chilling. The predictive brain overrides physical reality.
And our own health. When your brain constantly predicts danger, toxic work, financial stress, negative news, your body budget stays in the red.
The loud, deaf scientist keeps shouting for cortisol.
This chronic misbudgeting causes inflammation, which actually remodels the structure of your brain.
It damages the control networks. This links stress, depression, and chronic pain to predictive body budgeting.
We have to rethink pain. Pain is an experience constructed by prediction, not just an alarm bell for tissue damage.
And nociception is the mechanical process. But you can feel agony without any nociception just because the brain predicts pain should be there.
Staggering. And the legal system, judges granting parole based on remorseful expressions that don't universally exist
Or making harsher judgments right before lunch.
because their body budgets are depleted. Low glucose, unpleasant affect, and the predictive brain misinterprets that as the defendant being less deserving of leniency.
This is why dismantling the classical view is urgent. When construction is invisible, emotions seem inevitable.
But when the system becomes visible, emotions are interpretations. Guesses assembled in milliseconds.
Which brings us to responsibility.
Yeah.
You are not at the mercy of a lizard brain. You are the architect of your experience.
You didn't choose the concepts given to you as a child.
But as an adult, you are responsible for the concepts you choose to engage with today because they dictate the predictions your brain will make tomorrow.
Think about your daily media diet. Every movie, every doom-scrolling session, every sensational headline, you are actively feeding your brain the raw conceptual data it will use to build your reality. Are you unintentionally wiring your predictive brain for chronic anxiety and outrage?
Crisis in Perception examines how systems shape belief and how better tools help us see clearly.
This project is free and publicly accessible. If you'd like to support the time, tools, and research behind Crisis in Perception, you can become a supporter on Patreon.
For a shorter visual overview of this topic, see the mini explainer linked in the description.
If you enjoy this kind of systems-level analysis, please like, subscribe, and comment with books or topics you'd like us to explore next.